Positioning yourself for success in business starts by understanding what your value proposition is and what niche market you're attempting to enter. Once you understand that, you can maximize your productivity, your profits, and your potential. Mike Coluzzi has 2 decades of entrepreneurial and business experience, not to mention the more than 20 years he's been in law as a lawyer. He now spends his days digging deep and helping his clients clearly define their value proposition and gain clarity, focus, and direction both in their careers and their life. He joined me this week to have a discussion about business diversification, value proposition, and gaining clarity. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Take a few moments to welcome you to the program, and I'm excited to learn all about your career and business and how you help people maximize their potential in the space. Great to see you this afternoon, and thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Michael, I know that you spend your day job helping people sort of maximize their proposition and purpose. So I'm wondering if you can tell me all about helping people maximize their value proposition, buddy.
Well, thanks for asking that question, because it's one that's really part of the process that I help folks with. And I seem to gravitate towards people who have very similar backgrounds to me. So my background is as an entrepreneur and a lawyer and a business person over the past 22 years or so since I got out of law school. Has been one that's been filled with a tremendous amount of experiences that I like to help other folks. Particularly, I seem to gravitate towards a lot of other service professionals, and entrepreneurs who are really looking to hone in their ability to reposition their mindset associated with selling, how to be able to really embrace the whole idea of marketing, and then really having enough, building the confidence in themselves so that they can move forward with their business in a way where they're really clear what their overall value proposition is. Because let's face it, we live in a very crowded world we're inundated with information 24/7. So how is it that, a person can develop something that can resonate through, right? To be heard. It's very challenging to do that. And it could be even more challenging to the person who's trying to communicate it. So if they don't have real clarity in what it is that they're offering to the world, then obviously they're going to have difficulties with conveying that to people. And then also being able to have the belief and the resilience that it takes to be a self-employed person or an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, Michael, I'm curious to know your thoughts on what do you think are the fundamental keys to establishing a competitive edge in business?
Well, I think that the most important thing, it really does associated with clearly defining who your niche is, and then establishing a brand message that resonates with your core audience, okay, in an authentic way. So if a person can do that and identify that first, and then is consistent in their ability to do that, and be able to do it in a way that is on a frequency level where they actually can then start getting some resonance with that core audience and connecting with people. And what happens is, what I found is that most people who enter into the world as self-employed people or entrepreneurs, it really does take some time and some dedicated effort to understand how and to what extent their marketing is having an impact on their audience. And it can, because we're all usually very excited about what we're off doing, right? And we want to share it with everyone. And when we share it, and then it gets, and we think we're doing a good job. But the point is oftentimes we're just not connecting with not even nearly as many people as we want to. So, so what winds up happening is with a lot of folks is they wind up seeking say like lead generation people or all these external people, and they start spending a bunch of money with the hope that they're going to resonate with people, or someone's going to provide them that magic formula. There is no magic formula other than you working to, again, develop that very clear branded message, and then continuously developing your skills as an entrepreneur with the fundamentals of business and marketing, and establishing that mindset that will allow you to, again, stay in the game and develop the resilience that it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, reading up on your story, my friend, I know that you've had plenty of different professional experiences, from being an attorney, as you mentioned earlier. You've also worked in corporate sales, and you've also owned businesses and dabbled in real estate. So I'm curious, my friend, what do you think is the key to remaining nimble in business and always being able to take advantage of opportunities that present themselves?
Well, that's a great question. And one of the core things that I have learned through all these years and all this wealth of experiences is that when I work with clients, and I have the clients who I coach with and I mentor, I teach them that it's extremely important to get a refined focus. Okay, because particularly now, because things have changed so much over the course of recent history. We're in the information age now, right? So if you look back over the course of history, obviously, we never were in a situation where information is received at such a quick velocity level, and really now more than ever, people have to really get refined in what it is that they're offering, and then just consistently sticking with it and refining that task. I often talk to people about if you're going to go into business, or you want to be successful in that business, you have to have the belief and in yourself. And what that is that you're going to have to commit to that 5, 7, 10 years to really make, to really establish yourself. And a lot of us don't understand how much that really means. So I often help people to get them beyond just the idea, for them to get a clear understanding of what it really means to run their business and all the fundamentals of business. And that's where my background has really come in quite a bit, because through my trials and tribulations and successes, but also failures, obviously, I can help people avoid some really costly decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also tell me that when you worked at your father's construction company, it also helped you to sort of fortify your vision for your professional future. So tell me, how did that experience impact your life, buddy?
Well, I mean, as far as construction to me was very second nature. I grew up in a family and in a household where my father was a builder. Okay, so by the time I was 15, I was on construction sites, and by the time I was 18, he had me running those sites, and I became very proficient in construction. So and that was one where I was very grateful to learn that skill and that trade because it's come in very, very handy as a small business person, and that's for sure. Because when you're working with your hands and you're developing those skills, it develops a level of confidence that is fun and very rewarding because you're building something, right? Which is really rewarding and good. Now, that being the case, when I got older and I went to law school and I got out of law school and I started working in the legal world as an attorney, I, quite frankly, was not really fully aware of how to really maximize that potential as best as I possibly could. And that's where what happened is when challenges started happening and I wasn't able to adapt to meet those challenges the right way, I became overwhelmed. And when I became overwhelmed, it put me in a situation where I put a lot of undue stress and put myself in a situation of constant like fight or flight and an anxiety state, which wasn't good, which ultimately caused me to leave that industry. Okay. And then go back to what was familiar to me. Right. And what was familiar to me was real estate. And construction. Now, that was a great experience. And like I said, I learned a lot and had some very interesting experiences there and some good successes. And we ran a really good business up and until 2008. 2008, as you know, was a very challenging year, 2007, 2008, because it was obviously that time where we hit a really difficult market slump as a result of the real estate market and the financial markets kind of converging in a very negative way that tied to a lot of the investment vehicles that were tied into bad mortgages, what have you. But what was good in that situation was through that very challenging time, that was the first time for me that I was able to start understanding that I needed to start working on myself and my mindset, and understanding that I needed to develop and I deserved to develop a space that I operated each day where I was in an empowered space, where I began to understand the process of quieting the inner chatter, right? Quieting the levels of anxiety and the negative self-talk that is such a problem for so many people. Okay, so that was one where, because of, I would ultimately say, look, the real estate experience was great. I was a big Robert Kiyosaki fan, if you know who Robert Kiyosaki is, but his big book was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Have you ever heard of that book, Kevin?
I have, yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So that was my first introduction. So when I was very much in my, in that space of trying to develop, I listened to that book and I understood at that point of time, he talked about, you develop wealth creation through real estate, passive income opportunities, right? Intellectual property, or investing in financial markets. So I knew that, so at the time I had figured, okay, I was doing okay in the real estate world and looking to build an investment portfolio. But again, 2008 kind of knocked me on my butt. And that really was boiled down to, because I really allowed my ego to step in, and I was doing real estate development projects as opposed to sticking to what my core initial thought was to build a consistent, conservative portfolio of mixed use properties. I didn't achieve that goal. I kind of followed the money with the housing market, and before you know it, we were doing developments, and then kind of got caught with too much housing inventory and not enough buyers and a collapsed financial market. So then moving on, like I said, through that process, I started to really understand what it took to start doing personal development. And that started to change my life in a good direction. I went back to doing legal work. My wife was working as a pharmaceutical rep at that time, and we had kind of rebuilt our life in a way where we were doing well, and from all external indicators, that was the we were checking off all the boxes, lived in a nice house and had the nice cars and everything else like that. But ultimately, we were both extremely overwhelmed with our careers. And that's where, at that time, I kind of reflected back to say, okay, now what can I do next to level up in my life? Because I wanted to create a situation where I can get my time back. And that's where most people, most folks who start their own businesses, who are entrepreneurs, they want time freedom, right? But they really don't know how to do it. And oftentimes they'll wind up buying themselves a job in areas that we don't know really well. We hire an expert. So I hired a business coach. And through that business coach, I was introduced to the idea of creating residual income. And he pointed us to a network marketing company wherein my wife and I worked very, very hard to develop a successful network marketing business in a company called Isogenics, which was a beautiful gift. And it was at that time I really began the process of coaching and mentoring people, first in the business, and then outside of business, I would get referrals from people who were who were former legal clients, or people who I would meet at events, who I found that I think I could provide them with value as a business coach. So I started coaching them on a referral basis, and that was the kind of the birth of me working as a coach and a mentor, and I've been very grateful that at this point, I've been dedicating, most of my efforts now to developing that business and helping service-based professionals and entrepreneurs, again, with that clarity of value proposition, helping them optimize new income opportunities, and really like understanding the importance of changing their mindset associated with sales and marketing, developing a better money mindset, right? And then also really understanding the importance of letting go of having to control everything and delegate tasks so that they can actually have the growth that they require based upon a framework that's founded in all of the fundamental business principles.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, I'm curious, with all of your experience and expertise in working with people, what is the key to establishing financial prosperity while also living a balanced personal life? I'm curious.
Well, the balanced situation comes with, I believe, when people become alignment with what their a balance with what they feel in their heart, that they're doing something that is in alignment with their purpose. I talk to people about moving forward with purposeful intention. Okay. And I always tell folks, you can do a really simple test when you're talking about what you do, right? And you're standing up and look at your posture. Are you standing straight? Are you grounded and connected with the earth, right? Do you feel empowered when you tell people what it is that you do? And if the answer to that is yes, then a person is in the right space to where they can prosper. Okay. That doesn't mean that they don't have to work on themselves and do the work and constantly improve their skills as a business person. But that alignment, right? That purposeful alignment and moving forward with that, that intention that is in alignment with what your core value proposition is, that is extremely powerful. And through that alignment really becomes a sense of balance where you are in a flow state much more than you are when you're trying to force something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Can natural and authentic curiosity serve as a competitive advantage in business?
Oh, okay.
Coluzzi
Okay, so what's great is obviously if you are in alignment with respect to what it is a person is offering to the public in their market, then obviously there's going to be a natural inclination to want to be able to be the best version of themselves so they can maximize their impact on others. So we have to recognize, as much as we know certain things, we also have to understand that there's far much more to learn than we will ever know. Right? So based on that, it's that quest for wanting to do our jobs better that becomes where there's just a natural byproduct where there's that curiosity to improve and to connect with other people, right? And to collaborate with other people who are in alignment with what we can offer. And then through that process, we level up our skills, right? Because we all start at a certain baseline and then we can serve a certain client base. But as we continue to improve our skills through that curiosity, like we just talked about, it then levels up our skill set further. It uncovers new opportunities. It uncovers new layers of folks who we can provide value to and service. So I think they go hand in hand, and that curiosity becomes dim once or when a person is not in alignment with something that they feel is truly in alignment with their purpose.
Creating an inclusive environment for individuals with disabilities to thrive in business does not have to be an onerous undertaking if you're committed to the process. Coluzzi provided his thoughts and perspective
Well,
on
that's a
the
very
matter.
interesting question, and that has to do a lot with the idea of people really being open to understanding that folks have value at all levels, and it has to also be a question of just really recognizing that. Here's my thoughts on that. My thoughts is we as a culture have to recognize there's different types of personalities, right? And there's different people who are going to be open to want to collaborate. There's other people who are much more, kind of self-centered and self-directed, right? And there's those degrees of empathy, those degrees of acceptance, those degrees where people want to share an experience and collaborate, versus those who don't. And I think if we do a better job, I actually work with clients quite a bit to kind of help them understand. Are you familiar with the DISC assessments? Did you ever hear of a DISC assessment?
No, I haven't. Sorry.
Okay, so if you think of a DISC assessment, that's a personality profile benchmark. Okay, so if you look at people under the DISC assessment and situation, there's different varieties of people who have different baseline criteria on how they function as people. Okay, so if you think of it, like the easiest analogy is if you think of certain people who have more like a real forceful or a real direct approach, they have a certain set of skills and a certain mindset and how they operate, which is different than someone who is more interpersonal or people who are looking to collaborate, right? And then you have people who are highly analytical folks, and then you have people who are just looking to eliminate any type of conflict, right? So the point is, and I think that if we're looking to get more, say, quote unquote, inclusivity, I should say, I think it really first starts with us understanding how people operate, right? And then being able to get in alignment with the type of people who would be most receptive. And for those people who are most receptive, that's where you lean into. And for those who aren't, you let them go. Because we're never going to get unified. We're never going to get complete unity across the board. It doesn't align itself with human nature and the dynamics of humans. There's because it's very hard to get everybody to be totally in alignment on all things. You can paint a very broad brush, a stroke where obviously there's like real obvious situations where maybe you're going to get an overwhelming majority of folks who agree or buy in. But as you start to drill down, as a person starts to drill down and you start to get into situations too, particularly where those decisions are going to start impacting people's life and what is valuable to them, then I think it's extremely important then to readjust so that we get in an alignment with the group of people who have shared value proposition and have shared valued systems, and then work with them, right? And I think that would then also empower the people, everyone, because there's alignment, right? That's what I think it would be a good way for people to move forward, so we can work in a more empowered situation as opposed to forcing situations on others.
Yeah,
That makes
absolutely. Yeah, it does make sense. Michael, Fowler, tell me, I know that you live down there in Florida, buddy, so I'm curious, what's the best part about living in the Sunshine State? And when you look at your personal and professional legacy, how do you want that to be defined, buddy?
Well, I mean, what's nice about being in where I live now is I always, we always talk about, well, people talk about quite a bit about vision boards and how to manifest, your reality. So for the longest time, my job and my goal, which I worked towards, and my wife and I were in alignment with this, was we wanted to get out of the cold. We were not big people who dealt with cold very well. So that was number one. Number two, I always had a vision of kind of living in a downtown area. I call it city light, where you can walk outside, walk to a coffee shop. I can walk my dog, sit down at a coffee shop, but be in palm trees and be close to the water. So Sarasota check the boxes off. Downtown Sarasota check the boxes off on all those levels. So that brings me a lot of levels of satisfaction on a personal level, and I absolutely love being able to wake up in the morning, walk outside, and it be warm. And then I love taking walks at night and it being warm. That just suits my personal makeup. Oh, okay. Well, that's another great question. Obviously, the legacy, as far as my legacy and what I strive for, and what keeps me inspired to move forward, is doing things that are in alignment with who I am and making an impact on people in a meaningful way. And then obviously building a financial legacy for my family, because that's, if we're fortunate enough to live a long, prosperous life, that requires money. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean that in a positive sense. So if I can create an opportunity for me to be in alignment with providing value to people that compensates me as a result, and I can continue to build my strength and my foundation on a financial basis, that I can serve the people in my family, and then and while making a meaningful impact on others, then I think that then I've done pretty good at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, follow, tell me, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Well, the best way to connect with me is right through via email, which is mike@mikecoluzzi.com, MikeMikecoluzzi.com. Really simple. If people would like to get a better understanding on what I offer, I think right now, at this moment, the best place to do that is just seek me out on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has most of my updated, is really optimized for people to see what my value proposition is for them. And it has up-to-date content. I have a website. It's being revamped right now. So I tell folks, it's really not the best representation at the moment of what I'm doing, because as an entrepreneur and as a business person, I'm like everyone else. I have to evolve as I develop skills and I see where I could be best served. So I'm revamping the website right now. It's going to take some time. So the easiest way, like I said, is send me an email at mike@mikecoluzzi.com, or reach out to me on LinkedIn. And the easiest way is just say that, hey, I heard you on Kevin's podcast. It resonated with me. I'd love to connect. And what I offer for folks is a free coaching session. It's a 20-minute coaching session where we start to identify specifically what 3 things that they would want to achieve over the next 12 months in their business, right? And how they're going about doing that, and what are their 3 obstacles that are holding them back most, and then how we can work together to achieve those goals and get beyond the obstacles.
Fantastic. Well, Mike, I really enjoyed having a conversation with you about value proposition and your work in business building, your work in the space and time. On my behalf, I most appreciate it. And I want to thank you for being here today.
Well, I want to thank you for having me, Kevin, and I'm looking forward to having the podcast published, and I'll be absolutely proud to promote it.